subject, which was, I got the idea of fighting, choosing your battles wisely, and then I got all these scriptures, because there's a lot about fighting battles in the Bible, if you didn't know. If you haven't read it, there's a lot of scriptures about fighting battles. Tower of Babel's in there too, okay. But I saw this scripture, and I'll just tell you what it says. It says, "The steps of a good man are ordered of the Lord, and he delighteth in his way." So today, for the next 10 minutes, all I want to do is kind of break that down a little bit. So, the steps of a good man, in parentheses you can put woman, child, okay, man meaning mankind. I want to talk about what the good means and the steps of a good man. We all know good people, right? We know good people. Do we know good people that are not Christians? No? I know some. Some very good people that aren't Christians. So the good in this scripture does not mean just a good person. Just someone that goes and, goes and feeds the homeless at a soup kitchen. That's great. But they're not saved. It's not talking about them. The steps of a good man. There are a lot of good people who aren't saved, and how many of you guys know that if you're not saved, you're not going to heaven? Right? I hate that, because there's so many good people in this world, but good deeds aren't going to get you into heaven. That's number one. So, steps of a good man. To me, good means someone who is strong in their walk with God. Someone who is actively seeking God and His Word and what He says to do. So the steps of a good man. You can put the steps of a godly man. Steps of a godly woman. And by godly, I only mean someone that is saved and someone that is actively seeking what God is telling them. That's important. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. When I say ordered, you guys, do you think of like a general, like ordering people around? That's what I think of. That's not what God's meaning in this. Ordered in this scripture doesn't mean forced. Ordered means put in a sequence or placed. So the steps of a good man are ordered or placed by the Lord. So far, with this one scripture that I'm just breaking down for this, the steps of a good man, the steps of someone who is actively seeking God's will, are placed in front of him by God. God will take you where you need to go if you're good or following His plan for your life. Inherently, if you're following His plan for your life, you're going to be pretty good, right? So it does mean a good person, but it means a little bit more than that. I wanted to talk about something else. Delaney, can you put up that scripture? Psalms 37:23. I made this picture and I didn't even write the scripture down for her. Because I want to talk about something very important in it. Okay. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and He delighteth in His way. Does everybody see that word He? Yes? Does everybody see the word Lord? Yes. What's the difference between the two, besides their different words? What's the difference? What is Lord that He is not? Capitalized. Thank you. I think this is very important. You could argue that this is semantics, and it may be. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and He delighteth in His way. Austin. All three of you, we're going to have a discussion after church. This is ridiculous, and I'm done with it. Okay, anyway. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and He delighteth in His way. Never mind. So the He in this is not capitalized. If you've read the King James Bible, and most Bibles, all of them, they capitalize He when they're talking about God. I was watching Stephen Furtick, as I always do. I was watching Stephen Furtick, as I always do, and he was talking about this scripture, and he said something that kind of made me think about it a little bit differently. He said that he is not capitalized. I, as well as Stephen Furtick, always thought that this scripture was saying that God is happy when you do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
He is. He definitely is happy when you do what you're supposed to do, but according to this, I don't think that he is talking about God. It's talking about us. God delights in our way when we follow him. That's a given. He wouldn't tell us to do something if he wasn't happy when we did it. But I think this scripture is suggesting that we will delight in doing God's work and going his way. Following God should produce joy. And on the flip side of that, if you find yourself missing joy, the first place you should look is where you're putting your steps. Where you're placing your feet.
Amen.
I know I've had to, man, my family can tell you, for a while there was no joy. No joy. Right, Dad? It was bad.
Amen.
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah, it was bad for a while. And I had to decide if I was going to go this way or that way, right? If I was going to continue, I was kind of at a standstill, okay? So it's kind of a twofold thing. When you're walking in the way God's telling you to go, you're going to have joy. When God's telling you to go somewhere and you're not moving, that's almost as bad as walking the other way, right? So, when we're walking in the right path, and I was going to have you guys do something really cute, like, I was going to blindfold one of you and, like, have you do pin the towel without it, and I was going to, but I didn't do that. But the whole thing is, when we are walking in the way that we're supposed to be walking, God is with us, and he's telling us where to go. And I was watching someone, I don't remember, and he said, not only, I think it was at that conference, he said not only are our steps in line, but they're in a sequence, so they're in time. So when we're in time with God and we're not ahead of him, we're not behind him, that's when we have our greatest joy and our greatest victories. But how are we supposed to do that? God's not standing right here in a human form and telling me, okay, the next step. Is he? Do I just not see him? Is he right here? No, he's not. You use the Bible. You have some tools. Like I was talking about with Show Me Your Glory, when we say we want to walk in his presence like Jesus did, that takes a commitment. That takes a commitment, and I know that it's a scary commitment because that takes sacrifice. Now, in most cases, that doesn't mean physically sacrificing yourself for someone else, like Jesus did.
That's right.
In our case, we have it easy, you guys. That means sacrificing your 30 minutes of TV at night for reading your Bible and praying.
Right.
Yes. Right.
That means sacrificing going out and partying with your friends for making the right decision and not involving yourself with those things. When we do those things, listen, there's a difference between joy and happiness. It's a different word.
Right.
When you have joy with where God is telling you to go, you have an innate happiness. You don't need to be excited about everything you're doing to be happy when you have that joy inside of you. There are some times that you're going to step out and do something God has told you to do, and like I've talked about before, you're going to be scared. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not happy when I'm scared. When you're walking in the way that God has told you to walk, of course he's happy, But according to this, so are you. It is so hard to take that first step. But guess what? He gives us all the information that we need, almost, in this one scripture to take that first step. If you know how to look at it, you know how to read it, the steps of a good man, the steps of a person who is actively seeking God are ordered, placed in front of him or her by the Lord, and it makes you happy to do it. So, I don't know how much time I have left. I feel like this is as long as I can go, but I do want to talk more to you guys about how to step out and do these things. Because I've talked about the fear side of it, but I want to talk about the joy side of it. The joy that you get through that fear, because that's a thing. I know you don't think about it as a thing, but you think, if it's scary for me, then it's not from God. Oh, that's a lie. If it's scary, it's probably from God, right? If it's the thing that you've been thinking about you're supposed to do, like me being up here, that didn't come from my head. Let me just tell you that. But there is such joy in doing it. Fulfillment. At your age, I know, I've been your age, all of you. So it's like, at your age, you are in high school, most of you, middle school. And when you get out, your whole life is different. Because right now you're in school 8 hours a day, right? What happens when you don't have school 8 hours a day? What do you do with that 8 hours? College, if you go to college, maybe you don't really go for 8 hours a day. Work. Either way, you're going to be looking for your fulfillment. And I'm sure you already are right now. And this scripture tells me that if I'm actively searching for God and I step out, I'm going to find it. So that's all the time I have for this week. But I do want to talk more about stepping out in faith next week, so I want you guys to come. And do we need to take up offering today?